Good morning, everybody. This is Xianliang with Morsels of a Thought in front of a very jumpy computer. This kind of had to restart it 2 times almost. And anyway, it is Morsels of a Thought number 1234. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yay! We're here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1,234 consecutive days of reading or writing or speaking or orating. So we're in this book, Grass Soup by Zhang Xianliang. I don't know the pronunciation. I don't know the tones. I know the last name would be Zhang, like if you sing it, Zhang. Spell it with a J in your head. Zhang. Xian, spell it with an SH. Xianliang. Zhang Xianliang. His last name is Zhang, and they put the last name before the first name, and so I put a comma where the last name is in my subtitle. Oh, good morning, John Clark. Good morning, John Clark. I can see something of your name. I don't see it saying that you watch, but it says there's one person. It says, oh, wait a minute. It doesn't say there's one person. It says you reacted. Morsels of a Thought number 1234, May 19th, 2024, 12th of July. This is all 1960. This is the title in Chinese. I think it's something like, I don't remember how to pronounce it in Chinese, but anyway. So for those of you who do read, this is what it says. I'll put it up a little closer. Try to make it straight. I'm gone. Where am I? Oh, goodness. Okay, there we are. The 12th of July, hauled dirt clods, picked through greens, wrote eulogy, shine on crimson rays. Shine on, crimson rays. Somehow that sounds familiar. Anyway, still hauling clods today. Hauling clods is the lowest level job in building a house. All you need is legs, hands, and the ability to walk. Anyone can do it. You don't need to use your brain at all. There is no trick to it, and there's nothing like responsibility. Even better, it involves walking on dry land. I could now be considered doubly blessed. My back had turned to a bloody pulp, and my bones hurt from the scraping, but that kind of hurting was hardly worth mentioning. It was no more than a very slight form of itching. The convicts who had laid the bricks had it no easier than we did. They didn't have to carry loads that were the same weight as their own bodies, but they did have to use a bricklayer's cleaver to try to shape our clods. When they held up a clod and tried to figure out where to begin, their hands looked as though they were handling a red-hot coal. It would have been hard for a physicist or an engineer to make a straight, freestanding wall out of those irregular lumps. The bricklayers would often curse the convicts hauling the clods, telling them to bring proper, complete, brick-shaped ones. "You go get them yourselves," the clod-hauling convicts would say, pleased at their own sense of humor. These bricklayers weren't group leaders after all. Who cared about them? Clod haulers cared only about transporting clods to the side of the wall. That was it. Whether or not a clod was usable was someone else's business. Group leaders were convicts selected to be in charge of small groups of around 20 men. Convicts doing hard labor pay strict attention to their own task. Doing their job, they become nothing more than a tool. There is no need for them to consider the requirements of the next step in the procedure. Something so simple as not blocking the next step on purpose is sufficient to qualify a man for being an up to the mark model convict. In capital construction, those who wielded the bricklayers' cleavers were called big workers. Convicts who transported the clods were called small workers. Then there were some small workers, also convicts, who did odd jobs for the big workers, like mixing mud, hauling mud, handing up clods, etc. Each wall of the building was made of many-sided, irregular clods, and all these diamond-faceted, many-sided clods relied on nothing but dried mud to hold them together. There is a joke about an irresponsible capital construction worker. He tells his mates, once a house is built, okay, you stand here and prop up the walls while I go get the money. Don't let go until I've got it. The point is that these buildings are only reliably standing when you lean against them and actually hold them up. The minute you move away, the thing falls down. In a labor camp, of course, this way of doing things was impossible. There was no money to be fetched at the end of a job, and whoever built a wall that fell down would be in worse shape than the wall. He would be accused of sabotaging production. What was one to do? The only solution was to use plenty of mud to try to glue the thing together. Whether it holds or not is all in a slap of mud. This was the big worker's secret formula for success. The most irregular bricks served the function of filling in holes in the wall. Fortunately, the soil of the Les Plateau, Les, Loess, makes a kind of mud that, once dried, becomes as hard and durable as if it had been fired in a kiln. It could probably withstand a 5-grade earthquake. Chinese do not use the Richter scale. They use a scale increasing from 1 to 5. Troop leaders were not convicts and were in charge of several hundred men. Okay. Of course, building this way meant that you had to use a very large amount of mud, so the small worker assistants had to work even harder, transporting and mixing earth and water. If these small workers relaxed for a moment, they would be cursed by the big workers. The big workers were important people in the process of capital construction. They had technique, and they had responsibility. As a result, the troop leader favored them, and when they cursed the small workers, he would help out and curse them too. No matter what had happened, the small worker was always at fault. Convicts who were big workers took this opportunity to use their power. If, for example, a big worker was at odds with a small worker, then the swearing at the small worker would be endless. The unfortunate underling, unable to do anything right, would have to put up with curses from the time the sun went up and work began until the sun went behind the mountains and everyone knocked off. When a big worker started cursing, his use of language would be infinitely more vivid than when he simply made a speech to one of the groups. Not only would he want to sleep with the small worker's mother, he would also describe every part of the mother's body in exquisite detail. Both troop leaders and convicts were acutely appreciative of this graphic use of language. I, too, could become transfixed just listening to it. This was another benefit, an entertainment program that was not available when you were working in the rice paddies. Convicts who were allowed to have a bricklayer's cleaver and work as a big worker were usually those who had been trained in physical labor on the outside. Most of the small workers had been intellectuals. They were rightists, historical counter-revolutionaries, or other thought offenders, and this kind of person could only do things that required no physical skill. When they came into the camps, they were fit only for simple, hard labor. Not only in working, but also in cursing, intellectual convicts were no match for convicts who were born to work. First, they were incapable of using the language that way. Second, they did not dare talk back, especially with the troop leader on the side of the big workers. As a result, when you heard cursing on the construction ground or in a rice paddy, you could be pretty sure that the object was an intellectual convict. Don't think, however, that intellectuals let themselves be bullied all the time. There were many occasions when intellectual convicts attacked laborers in denunciation meetings. On the outside, People might not have had the slightest problem with one another, but on the inside, the conflicts were legion. This collective, this group of people was like a mill for grinding ball bearings, everything thrown into it. Good morning, John Clark. There we are. I see your name. Ah. This collective, this group of people, was like a mill for grinding ball bearings. Everything thrown into it was ground against everything else. This was another one of the means of labor reform, forcing people into collisions with one another. Like a ball bearing plant, the function of a labor camp is to process goods, to abrade them and mix them together until each unit is just like the others. Yes, hauling dirt clods on your back is an excellent job. As an intellectual, not only would I not be cursed, but at as an intellectual, not only would I not be cursed at, but I could have the pleasure of seeing others cursed. I could only enjoy the artistry that went into flinging invective. To hurt and be cursed too was much worse than just hurting. Although those being cursed were my own kind, intellectuals, when your stomach is empty and your back is carrying a weight equally weight nearly equal to your own, sympathy and compassion are fairly well worked out of you. You could say that they have already been metabolized. As when you are at that point, seeing others in a worse condition can turn into a kind of comfort. The perception of suffering is relative to your point of view. You need only see that others are suffering more, and your own suffering will suddenly feel less. When you grasp that point, you begin to realize that whatever can be apprehended by the senses does not by itself exist. It is merely a function of your own mind. One cannot then blame God, Allah, or the so called leaders of a country for disregarding the people's suffering or for bringing endless tribulations upon a country. Nor can they be blamed for allowing some people to inflict on others what so many of those considered to be pain. Can't you see the carefree nature of my short diary entry on this day? Picking through greens meant helping the chief cook prepare vegetables. The labor reform camp had 4 stations. A station was a subcamp, a division of the camp as a whole. Each station had 800 to 1,000 men. The kitchens for making food for so many convicts were naturally quite large. The lower each man's grain ration, the greater the expenditure of the camps on water and mild plants. It took quite a few hands to deal with all this, lighting the coal, drawing water, washing pots, picking through greens, etc. The most envied job in the camps was being a temporary small worker in the kitchen. It was something like being assistant to the general manager of a large company on the outside. Sick men lying in the infirmary would compete for the privilege if they could. Okay, so we'll end it at this moment right here. Um, where's my pencil? My pencil. I need my pencil. Okay, I've got it right here. Okay, it's on page 24. Alrighty, so for now, we are going to pause and reflect on how good morning, Miss Source Cantata and John Clark. And we're going to reflect on my morning. I'm going to reflect on my morning. I'm going to a memorial today at 11 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, and it's going to be at uh, it's on Zoom. It's going to be on Zoom, so it'll be in Vermont for my friend Lori, who passed on April 1st. She had an aneurysm, and I guess they call that a brain bleed. Anyway, she passed on April 1st, and I got to last speak to her on March 31st. So I was able to see her in by Zoom on her hospital bed, and she was on a ventilator, and it was breathing for her, and you know that's how it is. Life goes on. She was 64, and that was really a young age to me. She's only 6 years older than I am, so you know The other part of it is that it's going to be held in a brewery because Lori loved to drink her beer. She drank about, I don't know, 1 or 2 beers every meal, except breakfast, I guess. Um, I guess, I don't know. She probably drank about 5 beers a day. And I went out and I bought some beer just to celebrate like this. And yeah, and she was a wonderful person. She was absolutely wonderful. I I'll I'll see if I can get the link to the slideshow onto this live comment area. She was really a wonderful person. She had really good ethics. She worked hard, played hard, and I guess she died hard. You know, really was hard. She was an electrician, and she would climb ladders and be in her jeans and outfit all day. And boy, oh boy, one time she had a ladder fall on her foot and crush her ankle into lots of little pieces, and she was out for months on that one. But she said she felt like she felt stupid for doing it. But I said, you know what? The odds are so close to where that's going to happen to you because you work as an electrician. And she actually worked in Connecticut where they put the also where they put the wires underground. So she was Clark and Ulich Electric in Vermont. Her common law husband Phil is grieving her. Her daughter Pam is grieving her. Her grandchildren are grieving her. Son-in-law. Um, Pam and Ben had children, had 2 children. They had one by birth and one by adoption. And the little girl by adoption, this was a white family, but the girl they adopted is black, and she's beautiful. She's got this hair that somehow they learned how to, I want to say cook it. No, um, comb it, and it looks really professionally well done. So I don't know how they learned how to do it, but they did. They learned how. So that's the thing you do when you have a baby. Um, okay, so I will see you tomorrow, and for our Monday meditations with Marcus Aurelius. Meditations is the book he wrote. It's not actually meditation that I'm going to do here. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, so I'll talk to you later. Have a great, great day. And what we were reading just now is called Grass Soup by Zhang Xianliang. It's a story about a guy who was in a prison camp in 1960 during the Chinese Cultural Revolution that was very bloody. The Great Leap Forward killed about 30 million people. That's just the Great Leap Forward, where they donated all their steel and iron and metal. Okay, so talk to you then. Okay, okay, old Kinderhook. Bye then.